Hello and welcome again to TEC Bike Parts. Today we're going to be showing you a couple of new products, unique products to us that we've designed and developed over the space of the last few months since we've had the bike. Both these products address the issues that we found when we first looked at the bike and what a lot of the reviewers and owners have mentioned, namely the lack of any way of using a main stand or paddock stand on the bike, and also the fact that the number plate position is not particularly attractive where it is, and it doesn't look anything like the genuine original BSA mountains. So after owning the bike several months now, I'm really starting to enjoy it. It didn't quite get under my skin at first, but the more the bikes run, the nicer the engine's running, and the more I'm really enjoying the bike. But one of the really annoying things about this bike is there's no provision for a centre stand or for a paddock stand mountains even. And you can use a jack or like the cradle type paddock stands, but we found there's a lot of tendency for the bike to fall off those, and I don't like to change wheels or whatever those on. So we've come up with these. Now, these devices allow you to mount paddock stands onto the bike, but because they're actually attached not only to the spindle, but to the swinging arm, they can actually be used to take the wheel out of the bike. It'll support the bike when you take the wheel out. So you can use it for just parking it in the garage upright. You can use it for cleaning your wheel and your chain, which is a real pain with a standard bike if you don't have some way of getting it up. And we also put 3 positions of mountings on, so it adapts to most of the main paddock stands on the market, but more of that when we show you how to fit it later on. These are made out of stainless steel, so there's never any corrosion issues. They've got chain adjustment markings on, and like I say, 3 height positions that you can mount them on the bike with. Now these are designed to take just a standard 8mm bobbin mount, and like I say, in any one of those 3 holes there. One of the biggest design challenges to mount this on here is the exhaust system. Getting enough clearance so you can lift the bike but not foul the exhaust system. So we use several different of the most popular paddock stands on the market, and we built the design around them. And they probably cover 70–80% of the marketplace of paddock stands at the moment. We didn't go over the very top end ones, just the reasonably priced basic ones that you can buy on Amazon or eBay. And I'll show you when we do fit this later on, using it with the different types of paddock stands. But that's the first thing that we've made for the bike. The second issue we've addressed with the bike that bugged a lot of people, especially me, was the rear light. I've mentioned it before. The position's just all wrong for this style of bike. It should be mounted on the mudguard, and I know several people, I've watched people in the owners group have posted videos about fitting this type of rear light to the back. Now there's several issues with doing this. The main one, well, the two of the main issues are, one, you've got to drill holes to mount it, and the second one is that it isn't compatible with the standard bike's wiring. Now, one guy who fitted one butchered the wiring and put some extra connectors on, and the other guy actually butchered the light and took the internals out of the light and put it into this light, because this light, well, even if you do that, you still haven't got a clear lens for the number plate light. But he put the stuff in so you could actually then mount it with the standard plugs and connectors. A lot of kerfuffle. And our design brief was to find something that looks a bit like the original BSA rear light and number plate. Now that's what you would have had on a 50s or 60s BSA. I think this one's on for me a 10, but a lot of the bikes had this very similar sort of design that bolted up under the seat and bolted to the number plate at the bottom. They have the mudguard at the bottom. Now, obviously you can't make something like this that's legal these days, because that was the number plate back in the 50s and 60s. These were simply painted black, and you had either an aluminium pressed number plate went on there, or most people in garages did. They had white stick-on letters or white painted-on letters by a sign writer, and that was a number plate back in the 1950s and 60s. And they also had a little round reflector that went on the bottom. Took a standard Lucas type rear lamp, and that was basically it. Painted black, but they did look the part on the bike. So one of my design briefs was to get as close to this design as we could, bearing in mind the constrictions of modern number plates. You can't use this type of number plate anymore, and modern lighting requirements. Also the requirement to have indicators on the bike, and for all those lighting positions not only to be E-marked but also to be positioned correctly to comply with all the European laws. So we came up with a design for that. The next main design brief was no holes. We couldn't drill any holes in the bike. Everything had to mount onto existing hard fixing points, which was a bit of a challenge, but we got around that. And the next one is it had to be plug and play. There had to be no chopping of wires, connectors, anything. Everything had to plug in onto the bike. So I'm going to show you now what we came up with. And it's this quite complex looking bracket. Now this part mounts under the seat onto the seat lock, and these mount onto the actual mountings that the original number plate mounts onto. Now we've put lots of different positions in here where you can mount a number plate to, but there is other holes in here for other purposes as well. It also takes a reflector, an E-mark reflector, which we supply in the kit because the one on the bike isn't suitable to go on. It's got the mountings for the rear light, the mountings for the indicators, and this mounts, like I say, up under the seat. Now this is just a black painted one, just satin black. This is a pre-production prototype. The actual production ones will be in gloss black, as they were original on the old bikes. They'll be powder coated. Made from 3mm thick aircraft grade aluminium that's CNC laser cut and bent. Designed by us, designed copyright by us, and manufactured in England. So we're going to fit the number plate adapter on the bike now, but first of all I'm going to show you what you get in the kit of parts. Obviously we get the main mounting assembly. We get 2, 3 or 4 stainless steel brackets. Now these mount onto the original hard points underneath the mudguard that holds the original number plate mounting on. And now these don't need any coating, they're unseen, and the 3 or 4 stainless, so they won't corrode or anything. We get a couple of cable ties. We get 4 3M sticky pads. I'll show you when we fit on what they're for. We get an E-marked reflector that bolts onto this fitting on the bottom here. A couple of nuts and bolts to hold these brackets on. A couple of spacer washers that will explain what they're for as we get into it. And a couple of nuts and bolts that mount under the seat. So we'll show you now what you need to do to remove the original mounting and disconnect the wiring. Then we'll swap over the parts onto the assembly on the bench, and then we'll fit it back on the bike. It's not a really hard job. You only need basic tools, a set of Allen keys, some spanners and screwdrivers. Nothing exotic at all. So once you've got the seat off, you'll have a cable tie here holding this wiring on. You just need to snip that off. You get a new one in the kit when you've finished. And just pull this cable up loose, and just, you may be able to feed some here, but just pull this grommet out so it's loose. Now we need to go underneath the mudguard to the back light. So if you look under the rear mudguard, you'll see 6 Phillip headed screws. We don't need to remove those yet, but you'll see 4 Allen headed bolts here. They're in a row across the top of the plastic moulding that holds the number plate. You need to remove these with an Allen key. So I've got all the 4 bolts out there now. Now you must need to just jiggle it a bit to get it off the pegs and pull it down a bit. Now you might need to pull a bit harder and feed this cable up at the top, but it will come down a little bit. That's all you need. And what you need to do now is just take these 6 screws out of here. So that's all the 6 screws out there now. And just pull this cover off, and you can see the wiring connectors underneath here. You simply squeeze and pull the wiring connectors off. Now you've got a 2-pin flat one that goes for your number plate light, and a 3-pin, 3-wired flat one. That's your stop and tail light. Now they're both into the rear light assembly, and then you've got 2 indicators. Now it looks like these indicators should have been color coded, because each indicator wire has got a color coding on it, but the indicators aren't. So I think that's been a bit of a factory mistake. You just have to make a note or check the wire and the indicators work the correct side before you put the full assembly on. So this will go to the bench now, and we'll transfer all the parts over. Going to the rear light assembly, we're going to remove the parts that we need to reuse. So just an Allen key in it. Normally a 10mm spanner, but they tend to come off just with the Allen key. Now be careful with these, because they've got a little spacer inside, and you don't want to lose that. And that stops the plastic being crushed when you bolt it up. And next we need to remove these 2 10mm nuts off here. Probably easier if you use a socket actually. So you've got a nut and a washer on each one of those. Right, the last thing we need to remove from here, unless you're reusing your number plate of course, is these 2 little grommets. You just prise those out carefully. If the weather's really cold, you may need to warm them up with a hairdryer or something. Okay, so we can start transferring some of these parts onto our new assembly now. So we'll fit the grommets for the rear light first. Simply push those in, make sure that they're fully located both sides, like that. Pop your wires through the big hole in the centre, and pop your rear light assembly on. Your 2 large washers, the nuts, and tighten those up. Now your indicator lamps, the wire goes through the large hole. And don't forget your little spacer. Pop your bolt through. Now I don't normally fully tighten these up, because we do have a certain amount of adjustment on them where you can get the angle just right. Right, so that's all we need to assemble on this part at the moment. Next we need to fit the brackets onto the bike and remove the seat lock. Now what I would recommend doing now, before you go any further, is just to get a piece of cardboard. I'm just using a bit of old packing foam here, and just tape it over your mud guard, basically just to stop it getting scratched or damaged while you're working in this area. All it takes is to drop something or rub something against it and it could be damaged. Simple precaution, but it saves a lot of heartache later on. So next what we need to do is take 2 of the number plate assembly mounting bolts and washers and pass them through one of the brackets. And now these go to the centre 2 original number plate assembly mounting holes. Now just put those on finger tight for the moment, because you'll need to just adjust them slightly. Now we just need to remove the 2 cross-headed screws that retain the seat lock assembly. And just put that on one side. So if we get the assembly And we've got our bolt and washer. We'll pass it through each side of this bracket. Now make sure this wiring is pulled up in between the brackets, and just locate those bolts into those holes. And pop your nut on the bottom. It's a little bit fiddly, and this is why I said to leave them loose, just so you've got a bit more jiggle to get them in. It's also why I said to put something on the mudguard to stop you scratching anything with the wire connectors or anything. So now you can connect your wiring up to your plugs here. So make sure you, on the rear light connector, you've got one with 3 wires. Make sure you connect that to the one with 3 wires to it as well. And your number plate connector on the rear light goes to the one with 2 wires in it. And then you've got your 2 indicator connectors. And if you haven't marked these, what you need to do now is just turn the ignition on and check that you've got them on the right way around. You've got a 50-50 chance if you didn't mark them. So I've got it wrong. So right hand, left hand, and just check your brake lights working there. Great. Took all that wire into the centre, and what we've got on these 2 holes here is you can pass a cable tie round the connectors to keep them all clipped up away from the mudguard and up out of sight up behind the rear light. You just loop those around your wires. Right, so we can cut that at a later date. So what we need to do now, we're using the new bolts and the washers that we provide. Pass the bolts through the seat lock and line the holes. Now you'll find the cable needs to be pulled down and out to the side a little bit. Now in most applications it's fine to just bolt this straight on here, but on some seats, the seats at the back tend to vary in height, and what you may need to do is use a washer between the seat lock and this assembly here, in this position here. It's a little bit fiddly to get them both on without dropping off like that, but if you fit one at a time you can normally get them on. It's just a bit of a jiggle to get the hole in place. That's it. So like I say, you may not need to put the washers between the bracket and the seat lock, but I know the seat on this one's quite thick at the back, and just to stop it rubbing around here I've just added an extra couple of washers, but we compensate for that in a moment. I'll show you what we do with that. So you can actually tighten this up now. You can actually remove this tape and padding now, so that's not required anymore. Tighten these nuts and bolts up when we're happy with the position of the lamps in the centre of the mudguard. And we can fit our reflector, which has a little peg on it that locates on the bracket to stop it twisting. While we're here, we need to Just remember to tighten these up. Once you're happy with that in a nice position. And one final thing to do, because we've raised the seat lock up slightly, we need to use these 4 sticky backed rubber pads. And they just go in the centre of each one of these circles on the rear subframe. And also, if you just use a cable tie around this frame tube here, and clip it up like it was before you cut the cable tie off, and that's it. It's ready just to fit the number plate now. So, when you fasten your number plate on, because you've got this cable tie here, we give you a couple of standoff washers just to stop it bowing over the top. So that's the smallest UK legal size plate you can get now, and that's what it looks like with that on. I mean, some people may want to fit a smaller plate, but that's the smallest size plate in characters you can legally use in the UK. As you can see, it's really neat. Everything sort of frames the plate, and we've obviously got this very old BSA looking tapered mounting on the back here. Now, I think this is an ideal place to put a Stacked Rifles logo. I wasn't sure whether to get one of the old original ones with 650cc on, or just use one of the new BSA company side panel logos, which are available separately. That's very much a personal choice. You could put any, could be Union Jack on there or whatever, or even the Indian flag if you want to. Just to give you an idea what it looks like with a large UK plate. This is not the original plate for this bike, but just to show you, it's the largest actual size, and it has got this extra dealer bit on the bottom, and it'll still fit in there no problem. Obviously, depending on how your dealer's fitted your plate, they put the holes all over the place. You may not find the holes align. We have given a fairly big airy contact area where you can attach it if you need to re-drill it, but you could of course just use double-sided number plate stickers on there, because you've got a big clean area to mount it on as well. So if you've been waiting for the bobbin mounts, thanks for your patience for waiting right through the video at this point. But these are the bobbin mounts. They're mounted left and right handed because they've got this little bracket here that fits onto the chain adjuster, and that's what holds them in place if your wheel's off. Now they stay in place because these are accurately machined to the groove that the slider blocks go in, so they can't pivot up. The weight's actually not on the bolt when the wheel's out, it's actually held along the top edge of here. And as you imagine, 3mm stainless steel is an immensely strong edge on. But I'm going to show you how you fit them. It's fairly straightforward. First of all, you'll need a 22mm spanner just to loosen the wheel nut off. You actually need to take it all the way off. Now, it won't spin because the other end's in a block that doesn't allow it to turn. Now, what I would recommend doing now is getting a jack or something similar to take the weight of the bike. Now the wheel's off here. I'm actually going to let it down a touch just so the wheel's just touching, so I don't have to heave it up later on. That's just off there now. So now you can just slide the So that's the left hand side one fitted on as well. Now I'd highly recommend that you put some grease on your adjusters and a bit of grease on your spindle. It just makes life much easier if you ever need to take this out again. And make sure that you've got the flat edge of this facing forward against the chain adjuster when you pop it back in. And this is where you'll need a bit of a jiggle to get it back in. Actually, something's worth just having a look to see where the wheel spindle is. And as it's going through the other side, you'll need to jiggle it again. Right, so that's the spindle right through there. And again, you need to make sure this edge goes to the front and your chain adjuster block. Pop your washer and nut back on there. Now we don't tighten this up just yet, we'll just wind it up till everything's just sort of nipped up, but you can still move the wheel backwards and forwards. A little bit too tight, just back that off a touch. Right, pull the wheel back a bit and we can spin the adjuster up by hand. It's not very easy for you to see this. Get the chain to somewhere where it's getting sort of tight. And just make a note of where your chain adjustment holes are. As you notice, there's little holes in here. So that's on number 3. So I'll adjust this one so it's up to number 3 as well. Now when you're doing this, remember to keep screwing the check nut up to the plate to keep it pulled forward, otherwise your readings are going to be out because the plate will slide back with the wheel. So it's a little bit of fiddle till you get used to what you're doing. We wind the adjuster up and then the check nut against the plate. So now it's just a matter of doing a couple of flats at a time on each side to get it somewhere near where the chain tension's correct. You may find it easier to use 2 spanners, but on this side it's a bit of a pain because you haven't got the space. Much easier to do it with 2 spanners on the other side. It's easier just to hold your finger against the check nut like I'm doing there while you wind it up. So that's on 2 notches there, and it's about right for this side. So we'll adjust this side to 2 notches. And recheck the chain tension. It's a little tight, I'll just back that off just a touch. So always make sure that this check nut's up, not tight, but just against the plate to make sure it's got the plate fully forward. That's spot on, and it's on dead centre of 2. We're on dead centre of 2 on that side as well. So all we need to do now is tighten the big nut up. Now once this is tight, just recheck your tension A chain, make sure nothing's moved, and then recheck the tension of your lock nuts to make sure they're still tight. And that's it. That's your brackets fitted there now. Now all you need to do is either use your own 8mm bobbins if you've got them, or we can supply the kit with the 8mm bobbins and nuts and bolts as well. Now we normally provide these bobbins with nylock nuts, but I'm just for quickness today to show you, I'm just going to use a plain nut. And it'll look a bit shorter. But they pop in. Now, depending on what stand you've got and how much clearance you want to your silencer, you've got 3 holes there. Now, I normally use the middle one, which gives a nice high lift, keeps the stand away from the silencer. But if you're struggling for strength to get it up on that lift, you can always use it on the top one. But you may have to adjust your paddock stand for clearance and move it offset slightly for your silencer. Now one thing, because of the way the exhaust is on this bike, you cannot sit on the bike when it's on the paddock stand, because the suspension will compress and the paddock stand will hit the silencer and it'll make the bike unstable and you'll try and push it over. So it's just something to bear in mind. You shouldn't really be sitting on a bike on a paddock stand anyway, because that's not what they're designed to do. If you take the wheel out when it's on the bobbins, just remember, if the spindle's really tight, don't go bashing and pulling it too hard, because you'll be putting a lot of side force on these, and they're basically held by the bend at the front. So just bear that in mind. You can, use reasonable force to get the spindle out, but if it's seized in and you start hitting it with a hammer or something, you will bend these plates. So, like I said, just bear that in mind. So I'll pop this other one in here as well. So that's the paddock stands all on mounted there, and I've put them in the middle position, which I find is the easiest way to get a decent lift. If you put them in the bottom position, you get a really high lift, but obviously the leverage you need to work at, it takes a bit more, and it's normally easier if you've got somebody else who can sort of give you a hand and stand on it. But it's great if you want the bike high up in the air. So these are the 2 most popular stands you can buy at the moment. I've had this one about 7 or 8 years now. It's an aluminium Warrior stand. Now, these are marketed under various different names, but I think there's only one manufacturer. They just use different brand names. These are about, I think I paid about £50 for this, but I think they're about 60 now. You can get these from likes of Demon Tweaks, M&P, on eBay and on Amazon. And like I say, we're using these in the workshop. I think there are about 5 or 6 of these, and I really like these for strength and lightness. They're really light with being aluminium. So I'll show you what it goes up like with this one on. So you see, it gives you a nice good lift. Now it's very close to the silencer, and it's always a bit of a compromise with something like this. Just like I say, remember not to sit on the bike when it's on there, and always remember to lift them evenly, not all weight on one pin, not the other. This is the other most popular. These are the cheapest. They're a steel stand. I mean, this one's branded TEC, and again, these are a good cheap alternative. I don't think they're quite as strong as the aluminium stand. They do seem to flex a little bit, but I have used them for many years and they seem a good alternative. And you get these from the sort of high 30s available on eBay, and they're all basically the same. They may be branded differently, but again, they work really well. Now these are slightly higher lift stand from the wheel to the pivot. So I've actually moved these up onto the top hole. Now it's very important that when you use these stands, a lot of people don't tend to tighten these up. Now you need to make sure they're tight in the right position, like there where they're both locating on the bobbins. Now, luckily this bike's got these handles here where you can actually hold on to while you're putting it up. Now this is quite a high lift jack, but it does work very well. You see where I've got it there, it's a bit of a compromise. To have it not too far offset, you have to really have it so it just touches the silencer. You can bring it further in where it's not touching the silencer, but it means the jack on the other side is fully extended. I've got it extended quite a way there, but it does give you a really good high lift. So you've got plenty of clearance to either get the wheel off, clean the chain, adjust the chain, clean the wheel, check the tyre, you know, everything you need to do when you maintain the bike, or even just store the bike upright. So thanks for watching. Both these items are now available on our website. Just, you know, take notice of the cautions I've said during the video on where you can go wrong fitting these parts. Fairly straightforward. Not a great deal of skill or amount of tools needed to do them. Like I say, that the standalone, you know, it's makes life much easier around your garage or workshop. And the tail tidy, I hope you agree that it's a much neater system than the original one that I'll show you to compare with, that it originally hangs down there and completely covers the back tyre. So big difference for not a huge cost, and it makes the bike look much more authentic in my eyes. Check out our website. We have quite a few parts for this bike already, also Triumphs and Royal Enfields. We will be developing more parts when we have the time. Let us know what you would like for these bikes. It always helps us make our mind up which parts we're going to make next. After all, you're the customers and you're the ones that drive us in that direction. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the website, leave messages. Don't forget to give us a like and follow us on YouTube, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.